Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. It has been more than a minute and I apologize for that, but this is very, very exciting because I have wanted to make this video for literal years now. Because when I was in high school and when I was in college, I really, really wanted to find people talking about what happens after art school. Like, how do you kickstart your art career? And everything I was finding were from artists who have been like very well established. You know, they've been illustrators for like 20, 30 years. And although their advice is very helpful, I really wanted some like more current advice, something within the 21st century. So I decided to take it upon myself and make this video. I reached out to 4 of my really, really cool friends and interviewed all of them to answer the question of what happens after art school. These friends, plus interviewing myself, cover a gigantic range of topics because all 4 of them are successful in different ways and they all have had very different paths to get to where they are now, different education backgrounds, different like living backgrounds and everything. We have people who had supportive parents and people who had very unsupportive parents, people who graduated and then went back to school in undergrad, people who went to grad school, grants, scholarships, different kinds of clients, how they found clients. Like, it really covers a lot. Between the 5 of us, I think we've covered quite a few things. So hopefully one or more of the people in this video will really connect with you and will hopefully give you a little bit of something for you to take advantage of. There are timestamps down below. And this is really cool. Every single one of the interviews lasted well over an hour because we couldn't stop fucking talking. So I created a second YouTube channel called BianaBonus, which you can subscribe to or just go to over in the link up above. And that is where I posted the full unedited versions of those interviews. So if you watch this video and there's someone that you really like connect with in some way, if their story really like sounds like you can listen to the whole thing. They're all really, really great. I recommend watching all of them. The caveat though, the downside though, is that because these interviews were so massive, it was a lot of work to condense it down to 10 minutes. So we're talking like chopping off literal like hours of conversation. So if these 10 to 15 minute clips feel a little rough in their editing, it's because I was just cutting down a lot. If timelines and things feel a little confused, that's why. So bear with me with that, but hopefully this will be useful and helpful and awesome for you guys because I had a really good time making it. So without further ado, let's get into our first interview.
I'm Krista Perry. I'm an artist and illustrator based in Massachusetts. I graduated from MassArt in 2015. With an honors BFA in illustration. And since then, I've been working on a lot of licensing projects, but also kind of breaking into the world of advertisement, which is great. Most of my work centers around like greeting cards and patterns and like wrapping papers and stuff like that. So
when you were in high school, what was kind of like your vision for the future? What did you think your career was going to be, school, things like that?
I mean, when I entered high school as a freshman, I was definitely like breaching that I'm really interested in art kind of discovery, but I didn't really think that it could be a career. I always just thought it was like my favorite class and like I was good at it and that was really it. I think that at one point my art teacher had someone from Montserrat and then I was like, wait, you can study this like in college? Like I remember being just like really excited about the idea of like it not just being a hobby and kind of like going beyond that. Once that person came in to talk about art at a college level, I definitely like took it more seriously and took as many art classes as I could in high school. So then I ended up deciding to go to MassArt, and I actually did not plan on studying illustration. I wanted to be a photographer. Fast forward to like finally starting MassArt, the freshman foundation year, all of the projects that we were given like free rein on, I would like do very illustrative based projects. So that's kind of like where I was finding that I was having the most fun, the most success. And like, I just felt like I was like making art that I enjoyed. So
nice.
then I decided like, I'm going to study illustration. Sophomore year, when I finally started with illustration, I was really nervous. And of course there's like the kids that are like the superstars of your classes and you're feeling like really intimidated when you put your work up. And at that point, I really hadn't found like my style. I definitely had a style, but I didn't know how to like bring that into completed like assignments. And then I think junior year, Scott Bacall brought his sketchbooks in. And I was like, wait, you can do these things in a sketchbook? Because I always thought sketchbooks were like strictly for like thumbnailing. And like no color and no paint and stuff like that. I always thought that they were just like a boring thing that like has to feel painful. But anyway, so Scott Bacall brought his sketchbooks in. And I just thought that was so brilliant. And I thought it was so cool that like there's no rules to it. Yeah. And here I was thinking like it had to be a certain way. So when he brought those in, it really like opened my eyes to like, you can really do anything, and it'll help you develop your style and like figure out what colors you like, figure out what tools you like and how you like to draw and stuff like that. So that was definitely a pivotal moment for me, like during my time at Mass Art. And then of course, as I became more comfortable with filling my sketchbook, it was like starting to come out into my actual work. Around senior year is like when I started to think about freelance as a career and what that would mean. It was really tough for me to see myself working at a company because I feel like my personality and my work are the package. It's tough for me to tone myself down and sort of fit a mold. So when I ended up graduating, I applied to a couple jobs that were like centered around illustration and graphic design and stuff like that. And I actually was turned down by each job that I applied for. And I really like thought that that was like, that meant that I wasn't going to make it, or, you know, I thought that that was like the end all be all. And I was really upset by that. But then I kind of like, I turned it around and like just focused on rebuilding my portfolio. I definitely still kept like my positivity because, I would go to work and then I would go home and just work on replenishing my portfolio. I knew that like pattern design and wrapping paper and stuff like that was something I really wanted to get into. So I started learning how to make repeating patterns, and then I just would start making different projects for myself that like kept me engaged. And of course I kept working on my sketchbook and stuff like that. And then eventually when I felt like I was confident with how the site was looking, I ended up sending a handful of postcards out. And I actually sent a package out to Bando in Los Angeles. Totally did not ever expect to hear from them. And about like 2 weeks later, I got an email from them and they were like, we loved your package. Like, thanks so much for sending it. Do you want to work with us? I was extremely flattered and had no idea that they would ever respond to me. I think after having all those rejections for job interviews and stuff kind of made me think it's going to be more difficult to get people's attention than I thought. But I think the work really spoke for itself. But since then, it's kind of just been like a snowball effect of like, you work with Bando and then you start thinking about greeting cards. And then I reached out to Redcap, and it's been a crazy whirlwind.
So like after you graduated, you were not just doing artwork. I think you were working at Starbucks, correct?
Yeah. So I went back home for a year after school ended. I moved back to Boston. Actually, right before I moved, I sent a package out to Redcap and they messaged me. Like while I was at the grocery store, I actually remember like looking at it and being like, my heart, like I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. But so they were like, we love your work. We love your packages, like the package that you sent us. And another company that I just had no idea was ever going to actually respond to me. And so when we moved to Boston, I ended up starting a job at Starbucks. And that was like just kind of like another stepping stone. I definitely didn't intend on working there very long. It was just kind of like, this is what I'm paying the bills with while I'm trying to get everything else taking off. While I was working at Starbucks, I was doing that whole Redcap thing at the same time. And of course, that was really difficult because a lot of my shifts were opening shifts, which start at 5 a.m. It was horrible. It was horrible. I hated it so much. But all the while, like just suffering through that, I kind of was just continuously working away. And then finally I finished all my cards and wrap. And then they actually were like, we want to send you to Los Angeles and we want to throw you like a launch party. And I just was like,
oh my God,
amazed. Totally amazed. So it was really, really great. And then I just kept working and projects here and there were coming up for like the next year and a half. And then I finally got to a point where I could not take Starbucks anymore. So I was like, I'm not getting paid enough. I'm miserable. I hurt. I don't have any attention or like time for art. I actually called my mom because recently my Grammy had died, and I knew that she had money set aside. Oh. And I gave my mom a call and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't even feel like myself anymore. I just would go home and cry. So my mom actually helped me out with the money that my grandmother had left behind. Mm-hmm. And that afforded me a little bit of reassurance in quitting my job cold turkey. And actually the same week that I left Starbucks, I got an email from an agency in New York City that was working with Jameson whiskey. And it was just, I could not believe that it was on the same week that I was leaving my toxic, shitty job.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. And it was the highest paying art job I'd ever gotten. And to this day, I'm honestly kind of shocked that it happened, because it was just like, it was almost like a movie. It was so weird. 2020 was weird, as I'm sure you know. I got a random email from Nickelodeon and they're like, first of all, I was like dying when I got that email. But the next day they were like, oh, so like we need a logo for this new show. It's a SpongeBob spinoff called The Patrick Star Show. And I just like, I don't know. It was just so wild to me, because Nickelodeon had been on my like dream list. Yeah. For like since I was like 5 and knew that you could even be an artist. I was, of course, very, very nervous at the beginning of it, because it was just like very high profile for me.
Yeah, no pressure.
Everyone knows SpongeBob. I don't know. I still can't believe that it like was a thing. I'm so amazed. I think that the thing about it is it seems like a super glamorous, like magical thing, and it is. The triumphs are definitely super magical, but I think one thing that Instagram doesn't really show you is the depression, the crying, the anxiety, the struggle. Cause like, you're not going to post about bad shit that happens to you. You're just going to post about good shit because you want to look like you have it together, but I promise I don't have it together.
So then I guess the last question I have for you is, if you could talk to the people watching this interview, what would you say?
Realize that it's not instant, even though it might seem like it when you're following other artists that have already found their way. There's a good chance that those artists maybe do have reps and they're finding jobs for them. And also realize that a lot of people do not post about their struggles online. I would say definitely realize that it takes a lot of time and effort and crying and struggle. Like it's not just like this easy thing that happens.
Yes.
So I definitely think that like taking smaller jobs in the beginning makes a lot of sense, especially if you're just starting out and you kind of want to show that you're capable of certain things. I still take smaller jobs because those bigger companies are now going to see what I'm capable of, see my name attached to it. And it's kind of like an interesting like puzzle. Like how can I get from A to B, but also learn in the middle and get paid for it. And even if it's like a little bit more art designed than you would hope, it's still giving you experience with writing polite emails, being organized, keeping on task, like stuff like that. You're always building some kind of skill with every job that you get, no matter how mundane it seems or irrelevant to like what you want to be doing. I feel like it's always like a positive thing. I think also I was just told so many times growing up, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like you will not be this, you will be that. And like, I think that was a huge motivating factor for me, is like all the people that like maybe didn't believe in me or maybe didn't see it as a decent career. Or I do think that it takes a really long time, but like you just have to stay positive with it. And like, if you keep going, it probably will pay off. I mean, like, I don't want to say you're guaranteed that it'll pay off, but you want to keep rolling with the positivity.
So, hi, I'm Yaffa. Yaffa. I live in Bushwick in Brooklyn, New York City. I have a nice little home studio, and I have a day job working for Estee Lauder companies in packaging. And I also work as an artist. I've been doing a lot of freelance work in the last year, which I'm currently taking kind of a hiatus from to focus on personal work.
Okay, cool. So the first general question that I always ask people is like, what was your vision in high school? Like, what did you want to do? How were you kind of working your way there?
So my parents were not really into the whole art thing, which came from a loving place. It came from a place of wanting me to be able to make a certain amount of money as an adult and not have to struggle or wonder where my food was going to come from. And interestingly, it also came from a place of experience. My mom worked as an artist, but once she moved to Connecticut to start a family, it was too hard to do that kind of a commute. And there weren't as many art opportunities in Connecticut, and working virtually wasn't as easy. So she kind of saw, after she had majored in art and after she had lived the dream, she saw that fall apart, and I think didn't really want the same thing for me. So my parents just had a very specific impression of the whole art thing. So I would seek out opportunities when I was in high school, but they were not willing to drive me to the opportunities or to pay for them. So it was either I found things that were free or I didn't do them. Yeah. So I had like a lot of kind of fortunate opportunities. I went to Silvermine, which I had a friend who was taking oil classes there, and I came with her one time and like audited the class, and the teacher was so nice and like so excited that I was into it, and he gave me oils and he said, keep coming to class. And I said, I can't pay. And he was like, just keep coming anyway. And I couldn't get a ride, so I couldn't go. It was like 45 minutes away. And no public transportation or anything. And then there was also a summer that I went to Cooper Union, which was like best summer of my life. I was like 16 or 17. It was an opportunity that was only available for New York residents, which I wasn't. But I went to the portfolio review anyway. And then I got in, which was that was cool. And my parents couldn't really say no to it because I was insistent. I was like, this is the best art program in the world. You have to let me go, and it's free, and I can live with my grandmother, and you have to let me. So I did it. It was so incredible. I mean, it was such a great mix of classes, and they made you do like some interdisciplinary things. And at the end of the program, I said to one of the teachers that I really wanted to attend Cooper Union for college. And I said, am I close? Is there anything I can do? Do you think that Cooper Union would take me? And he said, no. He said, no. He said, but if you do the winter program with us, yes, probably. It was a Saturday program, so just Saturdays. And my parents said no. They said, we're Jewish and Saturday is Shabbat, and you can't spend money to get on a train on Saturdays, and you can't live with your grandmother during the school year, and this is going to distract from your academics and your grades are going to drop. So I didn't do it.
Oh.
My parents had always kind of said that they would pay for myself and my siblings to go to college, but they made it clear that what they meant was a professional degree, and that art school was out of the question. So if I was going to go to art school, it was going to be for free. I didn't have a lot of resources or like understanding of how to go to school for free at that age. And so I thought, okay, well, that's it then. It's Cooper Union or bust. Cooper Union was the only program I knew about that was free. So I applied just to Cooper Union and to UConn. I actually only applied to UConn because my parents forced me to. They practically did the application for me.
Oh my God.
I did not hit submit on that application. They did.
Wow.
Thank God, as it turned out, because I did not get into Cooper Union.
I went to UConn.
So UConn, I went in as a psych major. In my first semester, I decided that I really wanted to take art classes. And so I tried to sign up for them. My advisor was like, well, you can't sign up for those. Those are just for the art students. And there was not a minor at the time. But you could look up the classes and see who taught them and see when they were and what room they were in. And I did some research as to what the requirements would be if I were an art major, what classes would I have to take. And then I just showed up to a couple classes. I don't remember if they took attendance or like, I don't remember if I had some excuse or something. I don't know what it was, but I just attended the classes and I did the work and I did the homework. And if the teacher was assigning one drawing, I did at least 10. And if the drawing was supposed to be this big, then I did it this big. And I did that for a month. And then I went up to it was Ray DeCapua, it was Professor Ray DeCapua at UConn. I went up to him at the end month and I said, hi, I'm not actually registered for this class, but I'd like to be. And he was like, oh, that's weird. and he signed the paperwork that I needed. I then repeated this with all of the professors. This was the process of getting into each of the, like anytime I didn't know a professor and I needed to get into an art class, I would just show up. So I would just talk to them after the first class and say, hey, I want to be in this class. We need to sign something. It kind of word got around, but nobody really treated it like an issue in that first year or two, because I think everyone was assuming that I would eventually switch over to the art school. Professors and the administration started applying a little bit more pressure, like, hey, like, what do you want to do? Are you planning on becoming an art major? Do you want to do a dual degree? But I didn't really have time.
You didn't have time, and yet you were still doing all these classes.
Yeah, so in order to make it all work, right, I wanted to graduate on time. I wanted to do art classes. I didn't want to skip on the art classes either. So I was getting waivers to take about 21 classes per semester.
You mean 21
but even
credits?
Credits, sorry. Yes, not classes. But even like at that pace, there was no way that I was going to fill all the requirements to get a dual degree without staying an extra year. And I didn't want to pay for an extra year, and I didn't want to stay an extra year. Here's where my parents were kind of right. I was at a big research university, and it turns out that those have a lot of funding and a lot of interdisciplinary work. So I was finding that I was able to study a lot of things that were really interesting to me besides art, that were then in turn influencing my art. And I realized that there were grants that art students weren't applying for. And if you're the only art person applying, then you stand out. I started getting all these art grants to just make whatever I wanted to make. So every semester I'd have a different project and a different grant. It really helped that I had very specific mentors along the way. I always had people telling me, oh, well, you can do this, so you should. Like Ray DeCapo, who I mentioned earlier, once he saw what my interest was, he was handing me opportunities almost. And then with the grants, I have Jill Deans to thank for that.
Briefly mentioned studio space and very large projects. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so I kind of had to bully my way into a lot of things. And I'll say that, again, resources at UConn were not scarce, so I don't feel bad about this. This was a sprawling university. So I don't think I was really taking away from art students necessarily. But I really wanted a studio space, but you couldn't get a studio space at UConn. There were certain classes that came with studios that I was not going to reach until I was a senior. So myself and Ezra decided that we really wanted studio space. And so we built a 7 by 14 foot canvas in the hallway. And we specifically put it near like an exit entrance kind of deal. So like you couldn't walk in without seeing it and without being a little bit annoyed, like having to walk around it. And I had asked for space and was told no in no uncertain terms. But then after doing that, Ray DeCapo was like, okay, let me give you guys, I'll stash you guys in the back of the wood shop.
Is there anything else in the UConn timeline that you want to talk about?
So this pertains to after graduation, which is the Mitchell Scholarship, but that process started while I was still in school. Like for the Mitchell, which is one that I did, that's a scholarship to Ireland, and it is for a year of grad school, which works because grad school in Ireland is 1 year. So you have to kind of make your case for why Ireland? Why does your project need to happen in Ireland? What is your project? What do you do? Because I still had that same attitude of not really wanting to do art related things unless they were free. At that point, it wasn't really because of my parents anymore. So to me, like the grad school experience was a way to push off adult life for a little bit longer, to do something fun and engaging with intelligent people, and to grow myself a little bit more in what my art was going to look like.
So you had your year in Ireland, and then what happened after that?
And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And I started applying for jobs in New York City, but it was rough. Nowhere wanted to consider me. I was applying to mostly arts tangential jobs, like at ad agencies, where I would be like a copywriter and managing artist, but not doing the art. I applied to nonprofits that were associated with the arts. I was applying to I must have applied to like 100 jobs. Nobody wanted me. And I was like living at home, and I had a really bad breakup, and I was like losing weight, and like I was in such a rut. And my parents, like weirdly, were just so nice about it. Like they just let me stay at home. They never pressured me. They were never like, why don't you have a job yet? They just kind of like let it roll out the way that it was rolling out. I didn't know what to do. And my dad asked, when was the last time you were really happy? So I was feeling pretty dramatic. And I was like, oh, when I was in Israel, which was like a place that I went in like my freshman year of college. I had like really specific good memories of Israel. I was like, that was the place where I need to live. And that's the only place where I can be happy. And he was like, then go to Israel. So I did. That same week, I applied to teach English at a program that would pay for my housing and my food. And so then I went to Israel and taught English there for a year. And it was awful. It was so bad. And I thought I was going to stay in Israel forever. But by the end of that year, I was like, I'm never going to go to Israel again. So I started applying for jobs before the program was even over, thinking like, not this again. Like, I'm never going to, it's going to be just as bad as before. I'm going to apply to 100 jobs and not get anything. And I ended up getting the second job that I applied for. And I was working for a jewelry company. It was a crazy job. It was like an all-encompassing job. And I started doing a bunch of art kind of on the side and on my own. And I left that job as soon as I could because I had to. And so that's how I ended up working for Estee Lauder. But then I also started really branching out with my own work. So that was when I made an LLC and I started working as a live events illustrator. But then COVID happened. I had so much momentum. Like I was doing all these events. I was earning money as an artist. I had just been accepted to Artisan Fleas Williamsburg. I was making silk scarves and I was printing my art and I was selling commissions. And it's the most money I had ever made like as an artist before. And I was starting to think like, well, this could be real. Like I could work towards doing this full time. Yeah. And then COVID happened and like all of the things that I had planned were just right before the pandemic started, deciding like, okay, I'm getting serious. I'm going to make so many paintings. People's heads are going to explode. And I decided that I was going to paint every single day for 30 days. And then I hit 30 days and I was like, okay, 100 days, let's do it. And I like kept going and going and like COVID hit and I was like very rudely interrupted. And I started back up painting again, except this time with oil paints. And I was taking classes and teaching myself and it was super fun. And I was in the middle of like this whole bunch of paintings, like a whole series. And I was in a group show and an exhibition. And I was like, okay, I'm like hitting my stride again, even during COVID. Like, this is great. And then I found out I was pregnant and realized I couldn't use oils anymore because they are toxic. Right. So I stopped using them and I kept like trying to use other mediums and just like hating it. A week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, okay, enough is enough. Like I have to do something. I'm gonna switch mediums so hard that there'll be no going back. And so I bought an embroidery machine. So I'm in real deep now, but it worked. Yeah, I'm like teaching myself as fast as I can. And it does feel like it's going really well. And now it's like COVID is ending and I'm making art again and thinking about market. I really want to get that going again.
To the high schoolers or college students or to anyone watching this video who's kind of nervous about like starting their career, and what would you tell them?
Oh my gosh, I would say like get a day job. If you talk to almost any artist, especially our age in New York or almost anywhere, they all have jobs. Like you're not going to be able to feed yourself without a job. And so it leaves you a choice, right? You can go get a professional industry job as an artist, and that works for a lot of people. Like that is a great path, a competitive one, but a great path for sure. But if what you're doing is making art kind of just for yourself, or you're a fine artist, or what you're doing is very niche and doesn't really fit into an industry role, you have to get a day job. Everyone has a day job. And for most people, that means that they're going to be a waiter or a waitress, or that they're going to work retail. And that's great. I think that works really well for a lot of people. And I think it has the advantage of sometimes flexible hours and of not being a creative job. So you still have that creative energy at the end of the day. But what it doesn't have are benefits. And they don't really tell you that in high school or college. You should be putting money into your 401k or whatever the equivalent is as early as you can, like immediately if you can, because compound interest, look it up. And you want a job that has health insurance. I'm not just doing my day job for the benefits. I genuinely enjoy my job and I get a lot of value out of it. It's a great job because it's not creative work, so I have creative energy at the end of the day. It's a great job because I am not standing during it, so I have physical energy at the end of the day. And it pays for my lifestyle, and I can still be an artist. Like you can make time for the things that are important to you. That's, for me, that part of it has never really been a struggle. I've watched a lot of my friends graduate from art school. They don't figure out how to make it work in that first year. And then life kind of still moves on, right? Like they go do other things and they never come back to the art thing. And I think that's where those ideas might come from, of like, you have to make it work immediately or it's never going to work. But what I think is more important is having that kind of like resilience and focus, where it is actually okay to fuck up for a whole year and you can still come back from that. And I've done it multiple times. You just have to remember what it is that you want to be doing. Like, what is your long-term plan? What is your goal? And if your goal is to be an artist and you're always working towards that, it's okay if you're just working in tiny increments for part of that time.
I'm Soy, just call me Soy, it's easy. Yeah, I'm an associate designer at unnamed company for now, but I work in DC.
So let's bring it back to high school. What was kind of like your vision for your career, for your education? Like, what were you thinking you wanted to do?
I feel like I was kind of a late bloomer. I feel like my art was also kind of mediocre, and it still kind of is.
Honey!
I'm not like even putting myself down, but anyways, like, and yeah, I didn't really know. I decided to go to like art school till like senior year, and I feel like that's kind of late because I was also on the board of like, should I just go to a normal school and like do art with another major, you know, just like as a backup, because there is always this uncertainty with art. So I decided kind of late. It was like late junior or early senior that I was like, I'm just gonna go to like full art school, but I didn't know. But one thing I did know was I wanted to be like a full creative.
So then what kind of schools did you end up applying for?
So I think, yeah, I decided I wanted to go to like a full art school, like a full creative life. So I applied to not a lot. So because I actually went to the school, I'm like, do I want to like apply, like want to go here? You know, you just kind of get an easier sense. So I encourage people to actually go to these schools if they can. Anyways, I also knew I wanted to stay in the Northeast. So
okay. And then what did you decide to major in?
Illustration in the end, but I was always on the border of like graphic design and illustration, but I liked drawing like always, so I was like, I'm just gonna go with illustration.
Is there anything noteworthy that you want to talk about with your college experience?
So I was never one of those students that I was like, I'm gonna switch my major. Like, that feeling didn't really come to me. I was like, I like drawing still, even if these projects kind of kill me sometimes and I have no motivation, but I like drawing. So it's preparing me for the real world. Anyways, burnout, inevitable. Anyways, this is so sad. Sorry. But I just stuck with it, and I'm the type of person to like stick with it, you know? Oh yeah, no, I still like drawing. I still liked illustration, but I didn't have a job or internship experience at that time. So I had my breakthrough after I graduated, and I like did these internships during and after college. And I realized that I didn't like drawing for a job. It was something so like, art is personal, you know, and drawing is personal. So I just didn't like it as a job. But if you're not a freelancer under some partnership or like agent or whatever, you eventually have to go to a studio and you have to adapt to that style, and like that takes a lot of effort. And I'm just saying it's good to have multiple styles and stuff, but I just wanted to draw what I wanted to draw. It's still a job, like an art job is still a job, and sometimes you might like, I don't know, lose your way or burn out quicker. Did I burn out? Maybe. But I don't know. After work, though, I drew a lot of my OCs. I was like, it's my time now. And I always slept late, and I still sleep late because right after work, I want to do my thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you made the epiphany that illustration was not something that you wanted to do like full time. So then what kind of prompted you to go in a different direction?
Well, I was always between illustration and design, right? And we had that one design class that we all had to take at Mass Art. And the illustration people, I would say 95% really disliked it. I actually like really ended up liking that class, the later projects, when it gets more into design and less like illustration-y. And then after I graduated, I got the internship, but then I also signed up for the UX class. It was a night class, remember?
Oh, yeah. Oh, but what was the internship you're talking about?
The internship I did in Boston was called Black Math. Super rad, super cool studio. I still can't believe they chose me as like a mediocre artist as an intern. Like, super cool family. Like, I actually really loved it. But I just realized that drawing wasn't, like, I didn't want it as a job, but the whole experience was nice.
And then you started taking a night class to do UX, UI.
Yeah, it was more UX, like user experience, but we also had to create like an app, like an interface at the end.
Okay, cool. And then you made the decision to go to grad school for graphic design. Can you talk about that whole experience?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to go to grad school afterwards. And some people might be like, that's so dumb, like grad school, like for art, like what the, I mean, everyone has their own opinions, but I just wanted to go to grad school. Yeah, I just knew I wanted to go into design. And I was also job hunting a lot during school before I graduated. And there's just a lot more design jobs out there. And I'm not saying that illustrators can't do design, but I just wanted like a more concrete understanding of design. So that's why I wanted to go into grad school. And I liked that one class during undergrad. So I was like, why not? This is like, I feel like it's a smooth transition. And I started building my portfolio during the internship, during the UX class. And yeah.
Okay. And then how did you like grad school?
Okay. So I went to Otis, MFA GED program. And like, y'all, it's so much harder than undergrad. But like so hard. But honestly, I loved every moment of it. I just want to get through this to people through the screen. That grad school was very hard. It was harder than all of my 4 years combined into like from undergrad. And I've done critical thinking that I've never done before. And my brain felt like it split into two. Yeah, it was great. I loved Otis. Oh, one more thing. And in Otis, the MFA GD program, it's 14 months long. So you start in the summer and then you end in the summer. I wanted to kind of finish quickly as soon as possible. And then like, I don't know, get a job, dumb adult things. It's not dumb, but just adult things.
No, for sure. You wanted to like get it done as quickly as possible so that you weren't paying for 2 years of grad school. But then that also meant that the program itself was far more accelerated, which meant that you were like #dying the whole time. But you made it through.
I barely drew for myself, I think. But yeah, it was just design hell in a good way.
So I want to, now that you got like a full grad school education of graphic design, do you think you would have been able to get design jobs had you not gone to a school to actually learn it? Do you think with just your illustration degree, you maybe could have done it?
Yeah, for sure. Just have like a solid portfolio, keep applying to places, even internships, preferably paid. I don't like free labor, especially free creative labor. But yeah, no, you can definitely do it. I know illustrators from the past that, you know, has their like an illustration page and then a design page on their website /portfolio, whatever.
So then the final question is, to all of the high school students, college students, all the people watching this who are really like kind of nervous about what happens after graduation, what would you say to them? Oh, geez. I wrote this down and it was like 3 a.m. because I was watching an anime and it was dumb. I said there's no straight road in becoming a creative. You might major in one thing, but that doesn't mean you'll have to continue on that road or that it's your only road. And, you know, if you're feeling lost, try to look things from a different perspective and walk on grass. Who says grass isn't road? I walked on grass. Anyways. And it was greener. And it was greener. Yes. And it was greener. Or, I made a dumb version. Do you want to hear that one? Let's hear the dumb version. Burnout will happen. It's inevitable at some point, but to defeat it, your passion needs to burn stronger than your burnout. Oh my God. I love it. 3 a.m. soy thoughts. And that is like very fortune cookie. It's very anime protag, the last one. It's so anime pro. I love it though. I think it's actually really great. And so now this bitch, she has a graphic design job and she continues to draw so many anime and OC characters at midnight and posting them on Instagram. So you've got the best of both worlds. It's always midnight. Yeah, I'm happy. Michelle is an incredible graphic novelist, illustrator, mostly for like middle grade and children's books and stuff like that. But you know your work better than I do. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
No, that was a perfect introduction. Mainly the children's publishing, I kind of fell into graphic novels, and that's kind of where I've been taking my career. And my most recent one is Allergic, which is back there. And it is about a girl who really wants for her 10th birthday a pet to love, and she loves animals, but she finds out that she is very, very, very allergic to all animals with fur or feathers. So it's very sad. but she manages. It's a fun, happy story.
Okay, so to start off with, the first question I always ask is, when you were in high school, what was your plan? What was your vision for the future? What did you end up doing?
High school, there was no plan. And I really liked being an artist, but every time I would talk about I wanted to do that as a profession, the adults around me and the teachers around me would just kind of be like, well, you need a backup plan. And so ultimately that backup plan became graphic design, because I was like, well, it's tangential to art. And then I graduated high school in 2009, and then I went to Johnson & Wales, and because I didn't have good enough grades to get into any other school, and I didn't really have a backup plan, so I was like, maybe if I'm close enough to RISD, then I can like sneak and like, I don't know, by osmosis gain talent. And I started working as a designer for my university. I graduated early and I started working right away. And then I stayed close by to help with my family for like personal family stuff that was going on. And then I kind of started living a life where I wasn't really content and happy, but fulfilling other people's like wants and needs. And then I decided to go back to school. And that's where mass art comes into play, where I went later in life. And it ended up being one of the best decisions that I made.
Okay, so you went to school for graphic design because that was your, well, this is close enough, but I'll make money kind of path.
Yes.
What made you decide to go into illustration specifically?
Well, I always wanted to be an illustrator. I always loved kids' books and animation. And I was helping take care of my nephew in that gap period. And I loved revisiting all those books that I would read to him and he would love, and just kind of touching back to what made me fall in love with drawing to begin with and art. And I was like, you know what? I can work really hard and try to do this on my own, but I really want a mentor. I want to find someone to guide me through this so I don't waste any more time, because I felt like I wasted a lot of time and I needed to catch up. And it ended up not being that for me. Like the education system wasn't that for me, but I still made it work. And I think that's the most important part.
So you spent 3 years at Mass Art. And could you just talk about the experience, good and bad?
Okay, so it was a wonderful place for me to meet other artists. And I felt that I didn't really have an artist community, just being online and not really getting to know anyone in the art world. But then when I came to Mass Art, all of a sudden there were so many like-minded people and wonderful peers. And I met so many amazing artists. And that was the environment that I needed. And then there were the classes, which wasn't always the experience that I wanted it to be. And a lot of times I knew what I liked in a class, and I would just do whatever I needed to do to pass the other classes that didn't suit my needs, because I feel like a lot of teachers have ideas of what students should be and what their work should be, and they'll instill that in them. But then now, as someone who has a career in art, I understand that being a teacher must be really hard, because you know a lot of the things about the real art world that students don't have the perspective on, and you want to shelter them and nudge them in better directions that maybe might set them up to have financial success. Editorial wasn't that for me, but man, oh man, that was something that was pushed very, very hard. I think style is one of the things that makes me both envious and enraged at the same time, because there are so many artists that I love and I admire, and I'm like, oh my God, I love their work. I love their style. And then I have to kick myself, because I'm like, style is constantly evolving. Style is something that we shouldn't be striving for. If we're striving for a style, then we're striving for stagnation. And I want so badly us to elevate past the point of needing a style, because that's not what it is. That's not what you bring to the table. You bring to the table emotion, feelings, perspective. I have seen so many people fail because they rely on a style, but the heart's not there, the backbone's not there. So if you're constantly trying new things, then you're growing. I wish schools put that on a pedestal more than having a consistent style. But you don't have to be stuck to one way of being. When you break down what style is, it's basically just repetitive actions. Like, you are building a practice. Your practice should be your style, and that's your routine. That's materials that you use, that's techniques that you use, compositions that you gravitate towards, but then continue to push that once you have explored all of those, all of the little boundaries of your playpen. You need to get to a different playpen. That's like really all that it is. And I'm on the other end concerned that this is becoming my style, like my books. And I want to continue to grow. And so, like, my job now is to continue to work and build my practice, but implement new things to change up my style and change up my repetitiveness, because I want to continue to grow.
I was curious and wanted to ask about that because, the whole point of a graphic novel is to have a consistent thing from page 1 to page whatever the end point is. Do you find that challenging and restrictive, being like you really have to be in this rigid thing?
I think consistency is a challenge, and I think consistency is different than style. If we want to kind of dive deeper into that, because consistency is picking like your character sheet. I have character sheets up on my wall, and I refer to them and make sure that all the characters look the same. And that's just consistent storytelling. For the next book, I'm shifting the style a little bit more to try new things. So it's like I want to kind of morph as each book, but I do have to stick with the choices that I made at the beginning, but those can also fluctuate too. Like, looking at the character designs for Allergic, it looks different than where they ended up just because of the nature of graphic novels. I needed to simplify what I was doing. I needed to make cleaner lines. I needed to restrict a lot of my initial gut reactions to add in a lot of shading, do a lot of detail, because you just run out of time.
Okay, so now let's segue back to the original questions of the interview. So you went to Master, you spent 3 years there, and then you graduated in 2018. What happened immediately after your graduation?
Ended up happening, I was in my senior year, and there were a lot of really wonderful things that were happening at the tail end of my junior year into my senior year. And one of the main things that happened was I was just like kind of freaking out about my portfolio, not happy with anything I was making, and really upset with myself because I wasn't happy focusing my portfolio on editorial pieces, but I felt like that was all I had. So I had to keep going with it, and instead of changing directions. And as I was waiting for the elevator at the studio, I noticed a little a flyer that was for the Society of Children's Books Writer and Illustrator Conference. It was a competition. It was a student competition, but it's basically this big organization that is nationally known, and it's all the creators of children's publishing, and it's like authors, agents, artists, they all get together. It's a big conference, everyone has fun. And I didn't really know anything about it, and I was like, yeah, competition. And I saw that the winner received entry to the LA conference and entry into the portfolio showcase. And I was like, you know what? I like picture books. I've always liked picture books. Am I going to continue to make the same mistakes that I've always done and focused on a thing that I wasn't happy with because I thought it's what I should do? And I'm like, bitch, no, I'm going to enter this competition and see what happens because I am tired. And so that week I decided, changed out my portfolio, changed a bunch of pieces. The teachers looked at me like I was crazy, but I believed that I could do it. I believed that this was the right thing for me. And I sent in my application, and I found out that I had won, and I gained entry into it. So we graduate, and then a couple weeks after graduation, I go to LA, and I have my little portfolio, and I don't know what to expect. And I go there, and it turns out to be this wonderful place where I meet a lot of inspiring people, and I hear a lot of inspiring stories. And there were 2 agents that saw my portfolio in the showcase, and one of which had this project from the author Megan, which was Allergic. And so I wasn't too sure if I wanted to do a graphic novel, but I really loved the story. And as soon as I read the manuscript, I knew that this was what I really wanted to shoot for, because I always loved comics growing up. I just never thought it would be feasible. I got back from LA, signed with my agent, signed on to do the pitch for the project, and didn't know what to expect. put it together, sent it out, and then we got a bunch of responses back. It ended up, there are a lot of publishers that were very interested in our book. That is the story.
And then you just immediately became a graphic novelist, and
then I did it. It worked out. And like that's the hard thing. That's a double-edged sword to mass art for me, where I have had conflicting experiences where I wouldn't have been able to get into the student competition because it was a legitimate student-only competition. Like, a lot of the things that helped me branch out into my career was because of student competitions. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're going to school, that is your best way to get your work out there, is doing every competition that you possibly can. However, there's a caveat. Competitions are a means to an end. Mm-hmm. I do not like the competition hierarchy. Mm-hmm. I think it breeds a lot of toxic behaviors, but it's the system that we have. And I think now, as an adult, I'm actively trying to break systems, but it's a back and forth all the time. Mm-hmm. Do I think that I still would have had a successful career? 100%. If I didn't go to school, I know for a fact that I would have worked hard enough to get there, because that is at the heart of it. That's what it is. Opportunities don't mean anything if you're not doing the work behind the scenes when no one's watching or looking. And so, can you do it by yourself? Yes, you can. I feel grateful that I went to school because it panned out the way that I did. If it didn't, I would probably regret it. That's the thing. So knowing if school is right for you, if you're in the right mindset for school, if you walk into a place and you know that no matter what they throw at you, you're going to turn it into a positive for you because of your own grit and your own work ethic, then any situation that you're faced in front of will be challenging, but you can handle it. If you can handle it with grace, professionalism, you will succeed, because that's what it comes down to, is doing the work, putting on your horse blinders and getting to it. And you don't need a school to do that. I just felt that I needed to. And probably I would tell my younger self, no, you don't.
So do you regret going to mass art, I guess, is a good question.
I can't say I do because of where I am right now. I think I could have gotten to where I am now. It just would have taken me longer. And I think it might have expedited the process for me, because I gave myself the opportunity to focus on, like, as a full-time job, what I wanted to do. And not everyone has that luxury. If you can, then yes, but know that it's not going to just magically hand you everything. And then even after you do achieve the goal, we always talk about leading up to it. How do I get there? Mm-hmm. But what happens after you do get the thing? You get there. Because I had a huge depression because I didn't know what to do. Like, I had allergic and I was proud of it and I was excited, but I was working more than ever. I was like, well, what am I going to do after this book? I know I have to make another book, but what if I don't have it in me? It's like we dream of this goal and we sacrifice so much to achieve that goal and let other things in our lives fall a bit. And then when you reach it, you need all of those other things, all of the things that make your life fulfilling, to help you fall back in love with what you enjoy doing again, because it does become a job. Mm-hmm. It becomes repetitive. You become used to it. The other things in my life make me enjoy it again. Just because we love doing something doesn't mean our whole self-worth is tied to being an artist and what we do. I've adopted this new mentality where if I can't be an artist anymore, it's not the end of the world. There's so many other things that are fulfilling. And this goal is a beautiful goal and it's wonderful, but I can do it on my own terms and my own time, because then that's my goal.
So I always knew that I wanted to be an illustrator, and when I was in high school, I had very, very strong ideas about I was going to go to art school, I was going to major in illustration, and I was going to become an illustrator, and that was that. My parents had a very different vision. They were like, art school is way too expensive, and we really want you to learn business, because if you're so hell-bent on being an artist, you need to learn how to sell your art, and you need to have some other kind of skill to help you if you need like a day job or something. And if you decide to change your mind and change out of being an artist, you have way more opportunities at a regular university, of course. So there was a lot of friction, there was a lot of fights, and we made the compromise that I would go to a regular university. I could major in art, but I needed to double major in business or minor in business or something like that, and that the school needed to be somewhat close by and be of a certain price point. And when you can take in all of those factors, the only school that worked was UConn, University of Connecticut. So I ended up going there, and I had an amazing time. I really loved being with all of the other non-art majors. I loved my professors. I really liked being at UConn. But by the end of my freshman year, I was starting to feel a type of ways and was starting to wonder if this was the right decision, if this was the right school. So halfway through my sophomore year, that first semester, so like we're talking like October, I was really starting to wonder if I should transfer, because in my head, I was like, the whole point of me being in school in the first place is to give me the best possible shot of being an artist. So why am I wasting time and money being somewhere that is not going to give me the best chance of success? There's no point then. But I was feeling really nervous, and so I contacted my advisor, or a mentor of mine, and I was like, hey, can I please talk to you? And so I sat down with him and I told him how I was feeling, and I was all confused and stuff. And he started laughing, and he was like, I have been waiting for you to have this conversation with me. I'm surprised it's taken you this long. And that was the validation that I needed in that moment, because I wasn't sure if what I was feeling was sane, but I just needed to hear that. So we started talking about transferring, and the only school that made sense in terms of trying to best fit my parents' needs was to go to MassArt, because it was relatively close by, and price-wise, UConn at the time was like $25,000 a year, and MassArt was like $30,000 a year. So I was like, okay, MassArt, it's gotta be MassArt. And he was like, well, go call admissions. Pick up the phone. They tell me that today was the deadline to transfer for their following spring semester. And right as my heart begins to sink, they tell me, but we've extended the deadline by 1 week. So I'm ecstatic. I'm over the moon. I'm like, this is the universe giving me a sign that I need to transfer. I have to get my shit together. I have 1 week. Let's go. So in that week, I'm like racing around. I am getting my transcripts. I'm getting my scores and writing essays and getting my portfolio together. And in all of this mad scramble, I did not tell my parents that I was transferring. Because I had no faith in them that they would understand, that they would take this well, and I didn't want them to change my mind. My mentality was, I'm going to apply to the school, I'm going to get in, and then they're going to have no choice but to let me go. That was my idea. So I transfer, and then like a month later, it's Thanksgiving break, and I break the news to them. And that was insane. Naturally, they were really pissed off at me, because they were like, why didn't you tell us you were having issues to begin with? Why did you do this behind our back? You're expecting us to pay for a more expensive school, and this place doesn't have business. Like, this is exactly what we don't want. So immediately after having this argument, I get a letter from MassArt saying, hey, actually, we do not allow illustration majors to transfer halfway through the year. So we're going to withhold evaluating your application until about March. So you're going to find out in March if you got accepted to September, the following fall semester. And because of that letter, my parents were like, well, that's it. You're not going to go to UConn in the spring. You are going to work, and you're going to make money to make up the difference between these two schools. And if you get in, you'll go to MassArt. So it's December. I'm leaving UConn, and I don't even know if I got into this school. I'm terrified. I get a job working at Starbucks. I'm waking up at 3:30 a.m. to get to work at 5 a.m. I'm crazy anxious, but then I finally hear back from MassArt in March saying that I got in. So I go to MassArt, and naturally, emotions are really high, because it felt like there was a lot riding on this. I felt like I had to prove to my parents and to my professors and to the world and to myself that I didn't just royally fuck up my life by making this crazy, insane decision. So I worked insanely hard, because I was like, I need to suck up like every good thing from the school. I need to take advantage of every little thing. Otherwise, I'm a failure or something. So my mental health took a profound nosedive. I was literally at rock bottom after one semester of being at Mass Art, but luckily, very long story short, I was able to kind of turn it around. At the same time, like when I just started at UConn, I had done a little bit of personal research and realized that every major artist online that I loved, it all took them about 5 years for them to build up a large social media following. So my freshman year at UConn, I was like, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to start promoting my artwork online. And then by the time I graduate, I will have a little bit of a safety net. I'll be able to get clients. I'll have people buying my artwork. I'll have sponsorships. Like, I'll have it made. The timing will be perfect. So as I'm grinding away at Mass Art, I'm also growing my social media presence, which ended up being profoundly helpful. So my junior year in the fall, I really wanted to go study abroad, but year after year, my parents kept on saying no for various reasons. And finally, I was like, that's it, fuck it. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to save $10,000 and I'm just going to do this myself. So I look on the Mass Art job board and I look for illustration jobs and there's really just nothing. But I was like, well, I do have like years of experience with social media. Maybe there's something there. So I look it up and lo and behold, there was a job at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum for a social media freelancer. And because I had put in all the work, I got the job, which was amazing because not only did I get the money, but I also got essentially a boot camp version of learning social media marketing. So I now had a very high demand skill besides illustration that I could use to get work and make money. So I do my senior year. Things are crazy. I leave Boston after I graduate. I move in with my then boyfriend. He's now my husband. Oh my God. And then... And I'm starting to do some commission work. I had some like contacts at Mass Art and like kind of word of mouth things. So I started kind of doing some more client work. I got a job at a yoga and meditation studio as a marketing coordinator, which was great because I'm making good money. I've got a solid day job. Things were kind of slowly but surely kind of cruising. And then the pandemic hit. And the entire business went under because that studio opened its doors in November of 2019 and it didn't have a chance of surviving. So this job that I loved with all my heart was gone. And all my illustration work also disappeared because these events that I was illustrating programs and stuff for were no longer happening. And then I also decided stupidly to go off of my medication. And so I spent all of 2020 being severely depressed. Fast forward to 2021, and this year has been absolutely insane. Like, so many life events that normally happen nice and spaced out happened within like the span of 5 or 6 months. So it's been intense. And if I'm being perfectly honest, at the moment, I'm feeling very, very lost because I don't know where to go with my art, with this channel, with my career. But that's being in your 20s, baby. And, you know, I'm cutting myself a lot of slack because, you know, not even a year after I graduated, I get hit with a fucking pandemic. So, you know, things are a little odd. But anyway, I think the key takeaways of my particular story is transferring is totally an option. It's just a challenging one. I'm not going to lie and say that it was super easy. It was not, but you can do it. Have a skill besides art that you can use because, you know, I could have graduated Mass Art and I could have gone right back to Starbucks, but I did not like working at Starbucks. I had a horrible sleep schedule and I was coming home sticky. So by having, unfortunately, exactly as my parents predicted, by having some second skill in something that is in high demand, I have been able to live a very comfortable lifestyle because I have health insurance and a reasonable salary and things. That has been really, really beneficial. And then the third thing is like, fucking chase your destiny. Like, do whatever you think is right, even if it's crazy. Obviously, I would go back in time and do things very differently because I really should have communicated with my parents significantly better, if I could be perfectly honest, but I don't regret any of my decisions, really. I think because I worked really hard and because I made the decisions I did, I kind of stumbled into a very kind of successful little career path for myself. So yeah, if that's kind of my last final words. Chase your fucking destiny. So there you have it. that is hopefully some information for you guys. I highly recommend checking out all of their social media. They're just really, really great. And if you can, support their art. Buy Allergic, get a print, you know, that kind of thing. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I hope to see you on the other channel, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye!